بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. Dear respected viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ask Iman, your weekly Q&A show, and this is the program where you can ask directly any questions you may have pertaining to our daily day-to-day life activities. Joining me tonight is a well-known scholar, Fadilat al-Sheikh Shamsud Duha, who is a founder and former director of Ibrahim College and currently founder of MawaridLifestyle.com. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, welcome to Iman channel and thank you very much for giving us your valuable time.
Pleasure to be here.
Always a
been on
pleasure.
other programs and recorded some stuff, but not been on this show.
Indeed, first time, both of us as well together. So inshallah, marhaban bikum. My dear viewers, this is the program where you can ask directly by calling into the studio 0203 515 0769. If you would like to email us, then it's askeman@imanchannel.tv. Also, you can drop us a message on our social media platform, and please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, and follow us on our Twitter handle and Instagram page. And inshallah, if time allows, we'll take all those questions in this very show. Looking forward to your questions, inshallah. Sheikh, before we move on to the questions, let's start. Yesterday, we have seen on the social media, there's been rounds of the pictures of Mataf, the Kaaba has gone viral. People commenting even that this is alamat of Sa'ah, of Qiyamah. And some people are panicking, is this what it is? They've never seen it before. So I would like to ask you, as a Sheikh, as an Islamic scholar, what's your take on that?
Okay, Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man wala amma ba'd. So, with regards to what's happened in the Mataf, to be honest, if we think a little bit rationally, then that news is secondary. We are facing a serious health issue in terms of the virus itself, and I think we should be concerned about that. And if we can focus our minds on the actual story at hand, then we will realize that that even if the Mataf was closed, for example, and I've heard conflicting things, I've read that Sheikh Abdul Rahman Sudais made a comment that it's been closed at certain times to try to keep the haram environment as clean as possible and reduce the risk of infection, etc., as they should, right? Because that's exactly what they should be doing. But the point is, I think what's happening is we're distracting ourselves from the fact that this is actually a serious issue. It's a serious health crisis. The number of people who are being infected are increasing, and therefore everybody is taking, people who know how serious this is are taking the necessary precautions, and places where the public gather in large numbers are where the precautions are going to be the most severe, and therefore we can, and as things get worse, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid it, we will see more and more of these types of restrictions. The fact that the haram is being closed for a certain amount of time, or temporarily, or even over a significant period of time, is secondary to the fact that there is this massive virus.
Fair enough. Now, I just wanted to clarify, it's not the first time it has happened, as you've mentioned, it's happened in the past. Now, let's move on to the actual...
Yeah, it's a myth that the haram never closes and tawaf always carries on. That's a myth. It happens all the time. Now, it closes all the time.
Now, a lot of people have got that misconception that it never happened before, and this is the first time it has happened.
No, it's the first time you've seen it. I mean, I put a picture on, I put up something on Facebook just because it was an amazing scene for me to have seen the Mataf empty.
Fair enough, fair enough.
People took that in all sorts of ways.
Correct.
Right?
And some people have photoshopped it and make it look like as if like there's not a single person present. However, just to clarify, there were tawafs happening on the other floors, perhaps.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fascinating because we haven't seen it, but that's not really the issue, is it? The issue is that there's a virus and they're trying to protect people from that virus, as they should.
Correct. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Now moving on to the virus. A lot of people say, where is the tawakkul ala Allah?
Well, it'd be interesting to see if those people take the flu vaccine.
Fair point. Fair point.
If they take any medicine for any other illnesses.
Fair enough.
Right? And whether they go to work when they have the flu.
Fair point.
The point is, people shouldn't make statements that they themselves, right, don't believe.
Okay.
Right? So we all know that you make tawakkul ala Allah, but you tie your camel. We all know it. We all practice it. But then suddenly, when something new happens, we start making sounds that are completely inconsistent with our own understanding of the deen, with our own understanding of tawakkul. The bottom line is that this is potentially a health crisis, it can turn into a really, really serious problem. It has done in China. It's become very serious in Italy. It's rumors are that it's actually quite bad in the States as well, where it's not being managed very well. I've heard from people from the States. And obviously every day the cases are increasing in the UK. I think we've had our first death. And therefore it's something that we should take precautions. After taking precautions, we make tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The basis of our tawakkul is ما أصابك لم يكن ليخطئك وما أخطأك لم يكن ليصيبك. That's the basis of our tawakkul. That after taking all precautions,
if you can translate that.
After taking all precautions, whatever befalls you was never going to avoid you. Whatever avoids you was never going to befall you.
Okay.
That is not something we believe in precluding precaution.
Okay, fair enough. Now, when you've mentioned the word precaution, as Muslims, what are the precautions that we should be taking, especially Ramadan is not too far away, Jum'ah prayers, when we've got a lot of big congregation in masajids. Now, what should our responsibility be, and how should we take precaution as a Muslim within the Muslim community?
We should follow medical advice.
Okay.
We should follow medical advice. We should follow the advice of that is now out there. People should follow the story, and follow the advice of the experts. And that's it. There is no need to go overboard. There's no need to panic shop. There's no need to start stockpiling food, as some people are already doing, by the way. Just follow the advice to the best of your ability. Now, my concern is that there's going to be two extremes. One is people based on this kind of misunderstood notion of tawakkul, people are just going to ignore it and carry on as if nothing's happening.
Okay.
Right? These people are potentially a risk to themselves and to their own families and to people around them. And then you have the overreaction of people going overboard, stockpiling food. I don't know. People might start wearing gas masks or something like that.
A lot of different pictures. Bottles, cans, plastic bags, etc. on social media.
So I think we have to be careful. We have to be careful not to neglect it and ignore the issue. Be careful and so on. And therefore, don't be the guy who's not carrying tissue around. Right. So, for example, don't be the guy who doesn't carry tissue around. Sneeze so that you can sneeze into tissue, etc., etc. Do take precautions about washing your hands before you go outside, when you come back inside, and so on, so that you've protected your family and your household and things like that. Protect other people, so that when you go to the masjid and so on, you've taken precautions. So that kind of thing. The standard advice should be followed. Nothing more. We shouldn't do things before or after the advice. So if we haven't been told not to congregate in public, if we haven't been told not to congregate in public, then there's no reason to not congregate in the masjid. But once that advice is given, then we should respect it.
Fair point. And with regards to cleanliness, you've mentioned, does the hadith clearly mentions about part of our faith?
Yeah, I had a really interesting conversation with someone today. So a lot of people are putting out this message and turning this into a da'wah opportunity.
I see.
Oh, Islam has already tackled this because it instructs us to wash our hands and so on and so forth, right? The sunnah of tahara is not for the purpose of protecting us from a viral infection. The sunnah of tahara is to keep us pure from najasa.
I see.
Najasa and viral bacteria are two completely different things.
You can translate najasa,
right?
For a few bits.
So najasa is impurity, right? Okay. Things that are deemed ritually impure by the Sharia. Okay. Some things are impure, and most people will consider it impure, right? Urine, etc. Other things are impure, and it's not objectively impure, like alcohol, for example. Okay. Some people would consider it to be nothing. Right? It's not a question of purity, impurity, but we consider it to be ritually impure. So all ritual impurities, physical ritual impurities, purification as per the sunnah is to cleanse ourselves of that. Some of it is physical, in terms of keeping our hands clean. So, for example, the Prophet ﷺ said, when you wake up in the morning, make sure you wash your hands, because you don't know where your hands spent the night. Okay. Meaning your hands may have come in contact with najasa. So when you wake up in the morning, before you do anything, before you put your hands, because in those days they'd wash their hands, they'd wash from a basin, from a bowl of water. So before you put your hands into the bowl, pour water onto your hands and wash them first,
yes.
because the water will become impure when you put your hands in it, and so on. So it's to do with purification. It's to do with cleansing ourselves from impurities. It's to do with that. It's not to do. It isn't to avoid the COVID-19 virus. So therefore, you have to follow the advice. That's to do with tahara. In fact, some of the rulings of tahara don't even necessitate nadhafa. Some of the rulings to do with ritual purification don't even necessitate that you're going to be clean.
I see.
Right? You could have come. You could have come out of, I don't know, a football game half covered in mud, and then there isn't enough time for salah, and you just roughly clean yourself, make wudu. Your tahara is done, but nobody would say you're clean.
Fair point. That's
right.
Yeah.
So I think the sunnah shouldn't be misrepresented in this way just because we feel that now's an opportunity to shout about something and turn into a da'wah opportunity. This kind of da'wah is actually counterproductive because eventually the facts come out and basically we look stupid.
Fair point. Now it's time for a short break, but before we go into the break, just in 10 seconds, alcohol gel, hand sanitizers. Are we allowed to use that?
There's differences of opinion. So if it is synthetic alcohol, then it's fine. If it is ethanol, then there's a difference of opinion about it. But what we should do is, if we follow ulama who say that it is permissible to use and it's tahir, then we should use it. If not, if we believe that it's impermissible, then use it and then wash your hands.
Thank you very much. With this, it's time for another break, or the first break, in fact. Inshallah, we'll be right back in a few moments. Thank you very much. Welcome back to Ask Iman, the show where you can ask questions directly by calling in 0203 515 0769. Alternatively, you can drop us a text on WhatsApp 07916 841 483. You can email us at askeman@imanchannel.tv and also drop us a message on our social media platform. We are also live on Facebook page, and please do not forget to like our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, our Instagram page. We are live as well, I've been told. And do not forget to follow our Twitter handle page. With us joining me tonight is Sheikh Shamsul Duha. Sheikh, yes, we finished on our last question on the Hanjo, and you have clearly explained the two opinions. Now, before I move on to the caller, we've been told there's a caller waiting. Finally, at every point in time, there are certain groups we see on social media constantly delivering or sharing messages, perhaps one may say are not verified, perhaps may not be authentic. For example, I'll give an example, dua for coronavirus. Now the coronavirus even was spelled wrong, and at the bottom of it, there was a Twitter handle or a Facebook page indirectly hinting out, follow the page, etc., etc. Obviously, I cannot blame the individual, we don't know what the intention is, but doing things or sharing information that might not be authentically correct, whether it be from a worldly perspective or from a Shari'i perspective, how, when you mentioned about precaution in the first segment, so where does it go when it comes to sharing information without validating it or without verifying the source?
Yeah. So I think the greater concern is that I sometimes wonder, like, are people doing this? We know that in Islam, you're not supposed to share things without verifying.
Correct.
So we know that, right? So knowing that, I suppose the concern is, are people doing this because they believe what they get? Meaning, is this because people believe that somehow social media is somehow a reliable source of information? Mm-hmm. Because if that's the case, then we've got serious issues, right? So the bottom line is social media isn't a reliable source of information. Social media is where people basically dump whatever they want because you can.
However they want.
Right, because you can. Because you can get away with saying whatever it is that you want, right? You can, and then clickbait is another issue. So if you just, people just jump on a piece of information because it's going to get them more likes and get their page attention, etc., etc. And for some people, it's a business. So we have to be aware of that. And there's no media platform that breaks the principle of verifying the information that we receive. There is no such thing, and I often say this, there is no such thing as anonymity in Islamic epistemology. There is no such thing as not knowing our source of information. There is trust. So you can trust a source of information, but only if you know. Only if you know that oh, this is, I trust Sheikh so-and-so, and therefore I'm going to believe what he says. But logically, you have to be certain that the information that you've just received is indeed from Sheikh so-and-so.
Okay.
Right? So there is still a verification required. So, and that's important. And that's actually, that process is fundamental to our very understanding of truth. It's on that basis that that our deen stands firm, right? Because we have a chain of transmission back to the Prophet ﷺ.
Hadith, you mean?
Exactly,
yes,
right, in terms of hadith. So therefore, yes, you have to check everything. Now, so you receive something on social media, on WhatsApp and so on and so forth, so you just forward it on. I mean, how many times have we received these kind of things, right? And how the number of times I have to tell people off.
And not only that,
it's like, why
it blocks your phone through WhatsApp. If it's through social media, one share can go to thousands of people in one go, and perhaps will we not be accountable for that?
Yes, we will be. We will be accountable, because at the end of the day, the moment you do something that's wrong, you're accountable straight away, and then you're accountable for the consequences of that. So you've passed on a piece of information without checking, you're accountable for that. Because you've just gone against a command of the Quran, and it is a form of spreading lies, right? So the point is, you receive a piece of information. Why do you want to pass it on? Okay. Because it's good. Well, you need to verify it, unless it's come from a reliable source.
Now, some people.
So in the olden days, what did we do? We heard something from the Imam in the masjid that sounded really good. We went home. We told our friends and family about it. Imam Sahib said this, so we know firsthand that this was said by the Imam. If it happens to be incorrect, then the burden is on him. But at least you've done your job. You haven't done anything wrong. Fair point. Right? Whereas nowadays what's happening is there is no link to the source. We don't know if the information is verifiable. We don't know if the claim of the source is verifiable, because all of these things can be manufactured. At every step, the information can be doctored.
That's correct. But again, if you've mentioned about, say, Imam Sahib has said it. Now, even if someone wants to believe that principle, maybe the Imam Sahib might have said in a context that person might have taken out of context, or perhaps maybe misunderstood certain things.
Yeah,
So even there is
like
an
the dua for
element,
coronavirus.
the dua for coronavirus.
Coronavirus.
Coronavirus, that's correct. Now, the other thing I wanted to also make sure to cover the other side as well. Maybe some people are genuinely doing with the intention to earn hasanat. They might think, okay, by me sharing that information, maybe I'll be earning reward. Maybe it's a sadaqah jariyah for me. Maybe it's a thawab for me. Yeah. So sawab can be without verification.
Yeah, your intent. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be too harsh, right? But at the end of the day, our good intentions are our good intentions, right? But people can do damage with good intentions.
True.
Not all good intentions result in good consequences, and not all good intentions are necessarily good. You can't do wrong with a good intention, and the point is that at the end of the day, whatever your good intention is. A good intention has to result in a good, the famous principle, right? With a good intention, you can't commit a sin.
Yes.
Right? So as good as whatever our intention is, our action has to be consistently good. Meaning, if this is good, this has to also be equally good and valid. So therefore, again, I don't want to overstate this, but it is important. It's a problem. Social media has these issues, but just check your source, just verify.
Jazakallah khair. Now, whatever discussion we had in the show, please make sure that if you have any symptoms or anything that is concerning, please get in touch with a qualified professional consultant. And it is out there, the government website out there, Public Health England websites out there. Please seek, as Sheikh has mentioned, the necessary guidance and advice from the expert who are expert in this particular field.
I think it's supposed to call 111 or something, isn't it?
And that's correct as well. Call 111 to find out more in details. And please make sure that you discuss it. Make sure you take official advice from the expert and then take the necessary action. Now, moving on, let's see who's on the line. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Oh, mashallah, very young voice. How old are you?
I'm 8 years old.
8 years old. A regular caller. May I ask you, have you sought your parents' permission to call live into the studio?
Yes.
That's great. Yes, what's your question?
I have 3 questions.
If I can kindly request you to slightly speak louder, or if I can request the control room to slightly increase the volume, please. Yeah, go on. We're hearing you.
My first question is that when you are praying, and when you're praying, you recite Surah Fatiha in the first, right? So,
yes, correct. Okay.
Then you need to recite the other surah. If you don't know other surahs except Surah Fatiha, are you allowed to recite Surah Fatiha?
Only. You mean Surah Fatiha only?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Any other question?
Yes. My second question is,
okay,
if you die in Mecca or Medina, and when you're going up to Allah, and it actually rewards when you're dying in Mecca or Medina, or will you just get
let me stop you there. I think the second question, we're missing it. So if you can speak slightly louder, if you can repeat the second question again.
And my third question is...
No, sorry, we missed the second question. If you can tell me, repeat the second question again.
Okay. My second question is that if you were in Mecca or Medina,
okay,
and you passed away, and when you go up to Allah, will you get extra rewards for dying in Mecca or Medina? Or
okay, clear.
Specific rewards for your things
it's
that
clear.
you did good.
What's your third question?
And my third question is, because of the coronavirus, we need to recite dua to protect us. So normally I أعوذ بكلمات الله التامة من كل شر وهم من كل عين لامة. But are there specific dua to recite other than that?
Okay, specific dua for coronavirus. Okay, fine. Okay, I understood. Any other question?
No, that's all.
Thank you. Very articulately put. 8 years old, a regular caller, inshallah. Thank you ever so much. I really appreciate your courage to call in directly live to the studio. And thank you to your parents as well for giving you the permission. Let's start with the first question. Well, we've got only 90 seconds, and we'll just take first question, and then we'll come back and answer about reading Surah Fatiha only and no other surah.
Well, if a person didn't know any other surah, absolutely, then the salah would be done with just Fatiha. Okay. And they would have to, as soon as possible, learn When we say another surah, we're talking about, Surah Kawthar or something, or any 3 verses of the Quran. So that scenario is probably a possibility for somebody who's just accepted Islam and hasn't learned anything. So in that situation, if somehow they had learned the Fatiha and nothing else, the salah would still be done and it would be accepted, it would be complete. And then as soon as possible, they learn more.
No, God. And second question, I think I still have time. But what about if someone dies in Makkah and Medina? Any extra reward when they go up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Well, there's no. I wouldn't say that there is a quantifiable reward, but it is a blessed death.
I see.
It is a better death because these places are places of barakah and so on and so forth. So these are Mubarak places, so therefore it's a Mubarak death.
Okay.
We don't have evidence of X number of hasanat or anything like that, but yes, it's a more blessed death.
Thank you very much. Now, we've got a third question about coronavirus, but I'll touch that when we come back from the break. Do please continue watching the program, and if you have any question in the meantime, you can call in and be in the queue, and inshallah, when we come back from the break, we'll be taking your question first live on the air. You're watching Ask Iman, and please don't forget, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, and follow our Twitter handle and Instagram page. Inshallah, we'll be right back in a few moments. You're watching Ask Iman. Thank you. Welcome back to Ask Iman. And this is the show where you can ask questions directly to the studio by calling in 0203 515 0769 in conversation with Sheikh Shamsul Duha. Now, before we went to the break, there was a final question from our caller, and it was about coronavirus. There are certain standard dua, but is there any other?
She answered the question.
Dua? Yes, she answered the question.
So there is no specific dua for coronavirus. It's actually, although that dua is, the dua has been circulating, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-barasi
Correct.
wal-jununi wal-judami wa sayyi al-asqam. That dua is fine, it's valid, but it's a general dua for various illnesses,
So
right?
it's not specifically for
Yeah.
corona.
So it's for serious illnesses. It mentions serious illnesses at the end. The dua itself, it mentions leprosy, mentions insanity, and so on. So therefore, it's a dua for serious illnesses, and therefore it covers coronavirus. But so does the dua that our caller also mentioned. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر كل شيطان وهامة ومن شر كل عين لامة is perfectly good. I recite that, teach that to my children all the time. Or just أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. Or any dua that protects against illnesses is a good dua in this situation. The main thing is that we make dua. That we make dua and we continue to make dua, and that we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these situations, because after all, that is the basis of our tawakkul. The whole point of things like tawakkul is knowing that things are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that we're supposed to turn to Him and trust in Him and rely on Him. That is not believing, that is not to feel entitled to a specific outcome, but to trust all outcomes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Good or bad, right? وَالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ. The whole idea of tawakkul is to believe in qadr, the good of it and the bad of it. That means trusting in the outcome that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed, even if it might be bad.
So that means we have to have full tawakkul plus taking the necessary steps in action.
Yes, and that includes dua. That includes dua. In fact, a believer's first port of call should be Allah, meaning dua, turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dua, and then wasail.
Okay, and now if someone has just tuned in or perhaps doesn't know these dua, where can they find these dua?
Go to a good dua book like Hisnul Muslim, for example.
Fair point. Thank you very much. Hope that answers your question. Inshallah, if you do have any more questions, then please feel free to call into the studio directly. Now, moving on to our next caller. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, sister, your question.
Basically, my question is, I've been married for like several months now, and alhamdulillah, everything's going great. No like issues or anything as of so. But the thing that I've been most anxious and I think excessively worried about is trying to conceive, and the pressures of like, you know, the in-laws like wanting you to, you know, have a child soon and etc. and all that, and it's kind of over worried me to the point where I actually think that maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't give me, kind of making me doubt what hasn't actually happened yet, or if it even will happen yet. So I just wanted to know, how can I cope with the stress of it and the over worrying about something that I don't necessarily know yet? And is there any du'as that I can say that will help me to conceive?
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions?
That's it.
That's it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your courage calling to the studio directly, and very, very important question. Inshallah, Sheikh will address this question now. Any other questions, Sheikh, before I let her go? Is it clear to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Jazakallah khair, and inshallah, Sheikh will address the question now. A very important question, and there are certain things she has mentioned. Inshallah, once you answer, I'll ask those supplementary questions.
So first of all, we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses the sister and her family with pious children, inshallah ta'ala, in the future. Having said that, it's only been 3 months.
She said several months.
Several months.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of time. I mean, I know people who haven't been able to conceive for years, decades in fact, and then eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them children and so on. Indeed. So we spoke about tawakkul just a little while ago, and trusting in the outcomes or the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and these decrees affect us in different ways, right? Sometimes Allah's decree works in our favor and we're happy with it, and sometimes we're not. Nobody always gets life doesn't turn out for a person exactly as they wish for anybody, right? Some people have lots and lots of children and they struggle with that. So I wouldn't. So from that, and I'm saying that only to just stress the point that there is no need to worry and stress. And the reason why, there's a practical reason for that as well, because worry and stress doesn't change the outcome. If anything, it makes it worse. So stressing about this situation isn't going to make the sister conceive faster, right? So the best thing to do is, you got married not too long ago. You've said that everything's going well. Enjoy that. Enjoy that. Chances are you will, and we pray this will happen, that you'll probably conceive when you're thinking about it the least.
Okay.
Right? Having said that, you still tie the camel, you read the books, you take the advice, you do all of the things. But look, having been through fatherhood now several times, I would say trying to have a baby is something that isn't supposed to be stressful. You're supposed to enjoy it. You're supposed to be looking forward to something great. So don't let it stress you out. And don't let other people stress you out. It's really cruel, right, that in our cultures, the pressure to conceive is so severe on people, from elders and from in-laws and so on and so forth, that they have to basically call in and ask questions like that. All right. So people need to back off and just let people be. Okay. And that way, at least they can go ahead and try to have a baby without the stress, and actually enjoy the wonderful experience that is both that is actually the when you try to conceive, it's a wonderful experience with your spouse, and then the whole kind of experience of pregnancy and so on. It's supposed to be something that women look forward to. We're not supposed to load all this stress onto it. So in terms of du'as, I mean, I'm going to, because often people ask for du'as live, and I wonder if they will learn it, but there's du'as in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught, and the various anbiya and salihin have recited in the Quran, right? So there's the general dua of رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. This dua actually works for conceiving as well, because you are asking to be granted pious children, right? And then there's the dua of Zakaria alayhi salam also, where he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a wholesome and pure family, right, lineage. So these du'as are good du'as to ask. Another thing I want to say about people is, if you can't memorize a du'a, just say the du'a in your own language, and it is more profound and probably more impactful to say a du'a that you actually understand than to just regurgitate words that you don't. So رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا, oh Allah, grant us from our children, from our spouses and our children, the coolness of our eyes, right, and make us the leaders of the pious. For example, is a dua that one can ask in Arabic if they know the Arabic, but ideally, if you also know the meaning. And if you don't know the meaning but understand the English, then just ask for it in English. Okay?
Thank you. I hope this answers your question. And because it's a live program, we also would like you to go through, if you have any medical concerns, there are doctors available. Please speak to the specialist doctors, find out if there is any issues, and inshallah speak to your husband as well, and hopefully inshallah,
if your husband is watching, I would advise that, I believe that, not everybody's going to like me saying this, but I believe that one of the responsibilities of husbands, given that Allah has given them the position of qawwam, and part of being qawwam, or being the sustainer and maintainer, is also protection. Okay. And that husbands have to, in situations where there is unfair pressure on their wives from families, etc., and even sadly the extended family, and sadly culturally this often comes from the in-laws and so on, that husbands have to offer protection. They can't sit back passively and just watch, right, while their wife is being torn apart with all of this mental pressure. They have to provide protection and be like, however they do it, they can protect by having a conversation with the people who are applying the pressure, or they can protect by comforting and making them comfortable, or compensating in some way or other to basically remove the stress. And I didn't say, the other dua is actually shorter. I didn't say the Arabic. It's Rabbi habli min ladunka dhurriyatan tayyiba. That's, yeah,
Okay.
that's the other dua.
Thank you. And as Sheikh has mentioned, please seek the necessary advice. And Islam, and like the law of the land, men and women are equal. However, in a family, we have to work together. And that's why Sheikh has mentioned the responsibility of the husband. Surely wife has her own responsibility, but at the same time, both husband and wife need to sit together, understand the issues, and if there is an issue, consult with qualified scholar, as you did live. Perhaps if you need to sit down with a scholar or discuss these things matter in private, because there are certain things we can't even discuss on air, then please do so, and then also seek necessary medical advice from the expert doctors. And inshallah, hopefully, as Sheikh has mentioned, may Allah make it easy for you. And with this, again, it's time for a short break. But before we go on to the break, we remind you, we're live on Facebook page, on Instagram page, and don't forget to like us on our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Twitter handle, and Instagram pages. Inshallah, we'll be right back after a few moments for the last segment. Do stay tuned with us. You're watching Ask Iman. Ask Iman. This is the show where you can ask your question directly by calling into the studio 0203 5150769. And all the necessary details are appearing at the bottom of your TV screen. Joining me tonight is Sheikh Shamsul Duha, who is the founder of mawaridlifestyle.com and also founder and former director of Ibrahim College. Now that reminds me, Sheikh, what's mawaridlifestyle.com?
Oh, Mawarid Lifestyle.
Yeah.
So mawaridlifestyle.com is just something that I set up. It's an online platform I set up. So one of the reasons why I stepped down from Ibrahim College is because I wanted to be more involved in the community. I wanted to teach things that I thought were, needed in the community, and things that I also enjoyed teaching myself.
Okay.
Because I'd taken such a long break from that. I just felt I've had enough of management. So Mawarid Lifestyle is my way of kind of servicing all of those intentions online.
Fair enough.
So it's a website where I blog, but also my courses are on there. So I teach some courses on there and so on.
Okay, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Now, because you mentioned working with the community, now then my question would be, we had a caller in the last segment discussing about issues, family issues, especially stress from the family. I mean, when I say stress means there's an expectation that if you've got married, next generation, our parents or our in-laws have that kind of dream or desire to see. Now, certain times as an imam, I'm sure you can shed some light, a lot of unfortunate divorces takes place because of the unnecessary intervention by in-laws. Now,
and because of abuse.
Yes, that's correct. Now, as an imam, what would be your advice be to the in-laws or to the parents who are watching the program now? That yes, we do understand the parents may have the desire, but how should channel it? And should they actually put this stress on the couples?
A lot of the problems occur because people don't follow basic Islamic etiquettes and guidelines. So, for example, if there is a habit to backbite, if there's a habit to have make bad assumptions about people, these are all sins. If there's a habit to gossip, again, a major sin. These aren't minor sins, by the way. These are major sins. If there's a habit to make snidey remarks towards people, right, which again is haram. If there's a remark to mock people because of something that you find subjectively in your own mind, you find is inadequate in them, right? Like in our culture, if a person isn't fair-skinned, right, then there is a tendency, if a daughter-in-law isn't fair-skinned, there's a tendency to kind of make little jibes at the fact that she's not fair-skinned. It's just cruel in the most extreme of ways to attack a person's God-given qualities in this way. And then that is then compounded with backbiting. The thing is, this is all sinful behavior, right? So when a young person is married around all of that sin, right, and all of that haram, how are they supposed to be happy? Right, so these people who behave in this way towards young people after they get married, they're like a storm, something like a bit of a punishment, basically. You know, it's like you got married for happiness, but you've ended up in this problem. Then there's all of these. There's a cultural distance between expectations. So there's, you know, the generation gap. So one generation has one set of expectations, and then you have a younger generation who has a different set of expectations. There's no attempt to try to bridge the gap by understanding one another's expectations. So my advice to the elders is back off, right? And to the youngsters is try to understand the expectations of elders. Meaning, it's bad advice to kind of to say to the elders on the one hand, back off, and say to the youngsters, you now go live your lives. Because not all of the expectations of elders are bad, right? If elders are expecting the younger ones to have children and have children soon, this is consistent with the advice of the Prophet ﷺ, because the Prophet ﷺ wants us to have children, right? So I'm not going to say elders back off and youngsters now go and live your lives because you now have your freedom. But rather I would say elders back off, but youngsters try to understand what they want and etc. and their cultural expectations, and where possible, where it's consistent with deen, etc., you know, try to yield to it and try to keep them happy and please them.
That's true, but then on the other hand, the elders may say that we have age, we have experience, they're still young. They haven't seen the world like us. So that's why we're doing it, making sure that they do not make mistakes.
That's like now me in my 40s saying to my 16-year-old son, I can do this and I'm like this. You shouldn't do it because, look, this is how you should understand it. And what often happens with people is they forget how they were when they were 16. I often find myself, for example, with my children, asking myself, like, my children do something and I'm like, oh, that's wrong. But I have to pause and tell myself, I'm judging it as wrong as a 43-year-old. When I was 9, 10, when I was 13, 14, 15, this was normal. Didn't think twice about it, right? And I'd been fine. And you have to kind of temper expectations in that way. You know, I often say to elders when they apply kind of in-law expectations, you know, I often say to them, so what was it like for you when you were 25? When you first got married, what was it like for you? For example, in the case of my parents, right, when they were still young, they came here, no in-laws.
Separated from
right. So you should be able to empathize. You understand? You should be able to empathize because you enjoyed the independence of not having to have all of that pressure. And in any case, it isn't quite consistent with Islam. In this interference isn't consistent with the Islamic way of life, right? We're dealing with two adults here who can take on advice, but advice has to be given in the language of advice. Nasiha is in the language of fatherly advice, motherly advice. You know, the advice of a father-in-law, the advice of a mother-in-law has to be given as advice. Snidey remarks, backbiting, gossiping, criticizing, scolding, that's not the language of advice.
But then how would they feel? They have their own
If
children.
you're a father-in-law, you have to be fatherly. If you're a mother-in-law, you have to be motherly. And often, culturally, people treat their daughter-in-laws and their daughters differently. There's two different standards. And it's not acceptable.
Fair point on that. But however, some may say that because it's a daughter-in-law, she has a limited understanding, and that's why as a mother.
Why does she have a limited understanding? Why did your son marry her if she's so limited in understanding? They're not stupid. Right. Often young people nowadays are educated, usually more educated than their in-laws, but that's not the point. The point is nobody's saying they understand everything, and nobody's saying elders shouldn't advise. We're saying there is a language of advice. Relationships don't back down. Relationships don't break down, and people don't come under pressure because somebody's giving somebody advice. Betty this, better that. You know, that kind of advice isn't why relationships get soured. Relationships get soured because of bad treatment.
Okay.
Right? And let's not.
Would you say unequal treatment as well? Because if you've got
well, there's unequal treatment. There's unnecessary pressure. There's unfair pressure. There's
comparison.
There's comparing with other daughter-in-laws and other son-in-laws and so on and so forth. It's the Prophet ﷺ, you know, like the whole treating your children equally, etc., was taught by the Prophet ﷺ. You have a daughter-in-law or a son-in-law, that's another child in your family. That's another son or daughter in your family. Why would you treat them any differently?
The same way your daughter or your son will be going out to someone else's, becoming someone else's son-in-law, daughter-in-law.
Exactly.
Now, this question then brings us to the next question. That is, we know nikah is not acceptable directly in the legal system, the country that we live in. Now, how important it is for you to register our marriages?
For me, considering obviously everything that goes on afterwards, how things don't always turn out as you expect, the many cases of marriages not working out, divorce, abuse, domestic abuse, husbands leaving wives hanging, and yes, women are the victims mostly.
Not to forget, there are men.
Yes, of course, and in-law abuse and so on. Given all of that, registering your marriage, although not required in Sharia, is something that has certain legal benefits, and it also offers certain protections, makes the process of being protected and covered by the law a lot more straightforward. And for that reason, that is something that I would advise my daughter. You know, I'm the eldest in my family, so all of my sisters' kind of marriages immediately registered, my own immediately registered. It is standard advice. It is silly to take this line that, oh, it's a kufr system, or it's not something required by Islam, and therefore we don't do it. You are part and parcel of the legal framework of this country, and therefore have the right to enjoy its protections. And when you fall outside of those protections, you will suffer. Legally, for example, I remember when I got married, I had a little informal conversation with the registrar, and I said, so why do I need to register then? Right? I asked the registrar, and the registrar said, you know, as religious people, and I'm assuming the registrar was Christian, as religious people, you have to bear in mind that by law, if you don't register your marriage, your children are illegitimate. by law.
By law.
Now, that might not be a big deal to us because that's not Islamic law.
Yeah.
But to be considered, for our children to be considered illegitimate in any system when it's so easily avoided, shouldn't be something we accept.
Thank you ever so much. That's all what we have time for. Once again, thank you ever so much for giving us your valuable time.
You're welcome.
And inshallah, we look forward to many more episodes then.
Inshallah ta'ala.
Inshallah.
Inshallah ta'ala.
With this, my dear viewers, we have come to the conclusion of our today's program. Whatever discussion we had in our today's show, these are general guidelines. Specifically, if there is any specific, whether it's be marriage, whether it be medical, please get in touch with the expert qualified people, especially when it comes to coronavirus. And if someone or any one of us have any kind of symptoms, then please get in touch. Isolate yourself, get in touch by calling in the 11 number and follow the necessary advice. And with regards to the marriages, if there is any issues or challenges, please consult a local scholar, a local counselor, and then also speak to the expert who are in this field. Inshallah, that's all from us for tonight. Until next time, subhanakallahumma wa hamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.